That is such a good point. And later on, you have the diatessaron. They're trying to do some fixing of a problem. But I don't want to get caught up in that as much as just pointing out, I love what you said here. And you went right for the jugular. You didn't play around with the baptism narrative because there's a problem with that. I mean, every single narrative has this kind of issue. Whatever is being left out by Matthew and Luke, it seems for reasons they don't want that, or they're changing things. Like in Matthew, John the Baptist begs Jesus not to baptize Jesus.
Yeah.
Hint, hint. And Mark, it's just, yes, baptize him. And like, there's not this issue, and it's for the forgiveness of sins. Whoa, Jesus, what? Yeah. So like, there's all these issues, and Christians don't notice this because they can run. In fact, recently in a course I've been promoting with Dr. James D. Tabor on Mark, he wants people to read Mark as Mark. And he points out how in Mark, when he finally goes, who do men say that I am? Okay. Peter finally goes, you are the Messiah. You are the Son of God. Okay. Yeah. 2 verses later, he doesn't say, blessed are you, the Father in heaven revealed this to you. That is not in Mark. Right. Christians immediately go, James is of the devil. I mean, like, I've had comments like crazy, Tyler.
Yeah.
And what he says 2 verses later, because he tells them in what he's going to die. He says, hey, you said I'm the Messiah. I have to die, right? Yeah. Then he's saying, no, you are not going to die. He rebukes him and says, Satan, get behind. Yeah. Okay, so like, what the heck is going on in Mark? Matthew wants to go, blessed are you, Father in heaven has revealed this to you, not flesh and blood. Well, that is a change that is radically different than Mark. And you went to the jugular. My point, before we get to the super chat by Camille again, Camille is showing some love this morning, is the pinnacle of Christianity, the resurrection. And if we can't even get the story of the God of the universe in flesh, as we like to understand it, we can't even get that nailed down accurately. How reliable, how trustworthy can we really say our New Testament is on depicting what really happened? Yeah, this is a question. You can find ways to reconcile if you try hard enough, but this is a sincere question, right, Tyler?
It is a sincere question, and and I will, well, I'll try to be brief because I know you want to get this.
No. Take your time. We'll get.
But there, I haven't fully jumped ship or anything, right? So I'm not out here being like, the Gospels are just like. And I'm not saying you're saying this, but like the Gospels are entirely myth, or because they get one little detail wrong, you get everything right. You could go like a Lacona route, right? You could go down there and you could say, okay, well, these are minor discrepancies and all that kind of stuff. You could remain a Christian. You could be a progressive. You could be a Randall Rouser, and you could say, okay, they get the gist right. They're still reliable. I don't think that that my girlfriend, when she, doesn't get the time, or, her and her friend get the time, 5 minutes off or a day off or something like that. What happened 30 years ago, they're totally, it's all garbage, right? That wouldn't be the argument that I would make. But what it does is it says, okay, what can't be the case is like, I don't see how inerrancy can be the case anymore. I don't see how infallibility can be the case anymore. And when your systematic is built on that, and when you're done trying to harmonize it, what happens is those anchor points come loose, right? And so there's a trickle down effect. And so you start looking at it. So like, I still look at the Gospels and I'm like, okay, like I think the Gospels are probably generally reliable about what an apocalyptic teacher thought. I think they're probably close to what he was teaching his disciples. They almost certainly theologized like crazy. Yeah. They almost certainly slanted it towards the theological inclinations of the communities that they're writing for. They're almost, there's all that stuff's happened. But I'm not out there trying to say like, therefore it's entire, you can throw the entire thing out. And the reason why I think this is important, and then the last thing on this, the reason why I think this is important is because what I find now, and I started to see this when I was still in apologetics, but it's like full force now. There's a Mott and Bailey fallacy that happens a lot in apologetics, where in order to defend like minimal facts resurrection, or even maximal facts resurrection, or inspiration and inerrancy of scripture, they defend reliability. Right. And they're like, oh, well, they get this like minimal reliability of, oh, well, they get cities and places and
geography.
And
yeah.
Except for when they don't, because like Quirinius. But even Josephus gets things wrong sometimes. Right. And we're not like, to hell with Josephus, get that guy out of here, like, you know, whatever. But like, what happens though is they say, see, it's reliable, therefore we can trust all these resurrection stories. And I'm like, that's such a Mott and Bailey. Like you cannot do that. Like that is, you have so much more spade work to go between it's generally reliable to therefore we can trust that it's what it says about the resurrection. Like
if you read Homer's Iliad, the Odyssey, or Virgil, okay, you're going to read geography, you're going to find places, you're going to find probable events. Trojan War probably happened, some form of it. It's been heavily legendary or mythologized, right? I think the same of the Gospels. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck. And I think what happened for me as I was deconverting, and I can't even remember the chronology. I talk about this stuff so much, so it's difficult to know when was I thinking this or that. But I'm with you. Like when I started seeing that they're going out of their way, they're not making mistakes, I would say, on writing their narrative of the passion or whatnot differently. They're purposefully being creative and intentionally writing a fanciful tale their own way, sometimes adjusting or correcting the earlier gospel, in my opinion. But
especially Luke,
I would definitely say that Matthew and Luke are correcting Mark in many ways, or adding to and wanting to do something special. I don't think it's intentionally or a mistake necessarily. Sometimes I do think there are mistakes, but these are all like my guess is at the end of the day, though, they have the liberty to create narrative, to create their own version of what Jesus's death was like, or how the resurrection happened, who showed up, who's wanting to do what at the resurrection, what Jesus did, how many days did he stay on earth, the whole nine, right? Like he decides to ascend in Acts chapter 1, but you know, this is after 40 days, but in Luke, at the end of Luke, which is supposed to be the same author, he doesn't stick around for 40 days. He already goes. So there's so many discrepancies that you have to at least be honest and say, look, I don't know if this is historically reliable material, which made me open other doors and investigate things further. So I love the way you're describing this. It's kind of interesting how far you've gone into investigating these discrepancies. Were you still a Christian when you found this stuff out?
Yeah, I was still a Christian. I mean, I was still a committed Christian. So, you know, going back to what I said, I mean, I was still a committed Christian until I finally basically said, I'm not committed. I'm not committed anymore. I'm out. Like my deconversion announcement. I was still a faithful Christian until that point. I had lost my beliefs about 6 or 7 months before that. They had been eroding for about a year and a half before that. A year and a half before I lost them, and then I remained faithful for like another 6 or 7 months. Really trying to do the Pascalian thing. And so, I mean, these were all things that I was reading and investigating and thinking about like as a Christian. So a lot of times people are like, oh, like, you know, you're an atheist now. And I'm like, no, I mean, these were a lot of things that like, you know, that I was thinking about when I was a Christian.
Right.
And, you know, this comes up a lot, like when we're talking about like objections from morality. And I've started to see this a lot too, is like when we talk about, you know, oh, like I've been posting a lot of moral issues that I'm finding. And they're like, oh, well, you know, how do you ground morality and all that kind of stuff? And I'm like, I still, you know, slightly have the precept impulse. I get it. I understand it. I'm still a classical theist. I still think God grounds those things. But I started realizing like a Christian, I started asking these questions when I was a Christian. I started saying, hey, I'm starting to see these things. How does this make sense? How do we reconcile this? How do we reconcile this with the God of love? I was asking it as a Christian. The answer, well, how do you ground it, wouldn't work with me. I would say, well, you ground it in God. Like that's how you ground it. So, but can we still ask these questions? Those answers just, that may be a good, you know, tactic when you're dealing with an atheist. And I did that, you know, previously, but it doesn't actually answer the challenge, because all you have to do is swap out the objector from a Matt Dillahunty to, you know, a me when I was still a Christian asking those questions. And now now you still have to answer the question.
So morality is a definite rabbit hole that can get lost. And of course, everyone has arguments for or against or whatever their position is.